All right, guys, want to give you a heads up on what I've been into. Nothing on Johnny Ringo. It's been sitting. Just had tons of other stuff to do. You know, we're trying to clean up outside and stuff. I think the last video we gave you a tour of, you know, the shop and around the shops and stuff. And you know, you seen what a mess it was out behind my shop. So been trying to clean that up. You know, weather's just starting to break. We've been scrapping some stuff. A lot of these vehicles I buy for just the engines and transmissions, especially like the LS stuff. You know, I got fire trucks out there, I've got dump trucks, and all that stuff was bought for the engines and transmissions. If we want to build big trucks, I like Detroit diesels. You know, they two-stroke Detroits, they scream, you know what I mean, they make all kinds of noise. You know, it's kind of cool in a big old truck. But I need to get the engines pulled, I need to get the trannies pulled, rear ends pulled, and scrap this stuff, make more room out back. I'm collecting way too much junk and I don't need it all. So been doing that for a little over a week or so. We were out there. Now the weather kind of got a little cold again, so we're back inside. Been working on this four-wheeler I had here. I didn't get video of me doing it. I was going to get a little bit of video of it, like I said before, but I didn't. And now we're just about done with it. So I'll show you where we're at on it, and then I'll show you what else I've been doing. We've been working on the wagon a lot. So I'll show you where I've been. So here we go. This is the four-wheeler. Now it has a CRF 150 four-stroke engine in it, which was just a bear. I mean, this chassis was designed around the little 85cc two-stroke. So to get this four-stroke in there was just tough. So front motor mounts, made all new front motor mounts. The whole lower frame rail had to be cut apart. New frame rail put in. We had to actually sink this down to get the engine low enough, because I didn't want to move the frame rail down all the way as far as I needed to, because we lose ground clearance. Anytime we move that frame rail down, we lose ground clearance. So did that. Had to take this upper hoop. This was straight down. This was straight down through here. So we had to take this upper hoop and sweep it out around and back in to clear the carburetor, because the carburetor on the CRF 150 is much higher than what it is on the little KTM 85. So that's pretty much what we had to do with that. I know it doesn't look like much, but man, I have over a week in doing this. You know, trying to make something fit that it was nowhere close to designed to fit in is harder than starting from scratch, I think. I probably could have built this whole chassis in the same amount of time had I known what I was going to run into with this. So it is what it is. I mean, you know, nobody wants to go and build a whole new chassis if you don't have to. So did what I had to do to get it done. And you know, and it come out all right. It just took me a lot of time, you know, a lot more than expected. So you know, it took a lot of time away from my cars. But you know, like I said, this is a good dude, you know what I mean? He's always been real good to us. We've been friends for a long time, and that's what he wanted, so that's what we're gonna do for him. So I don't know, I've been messing with some other four-wheeler stuff. My nephew, race season's coming up, and my nephew's hard on frames. So this is a stock frame. I didn't build this one, but he was, you know, he cracked it here. He's cracking it underneath the frame there, cracking it under here. The frames, I mean, in his defense, the frame is thin. These frames are old. You know, the last time they made this bike was 2014. I think this frame's a 2006. So they've been abused for a lot of years. So anyway, you know, we just plated this bottom. We got a half piece of tube laid in. Doesn't have to be nothing fancy. It's just to keep the support in the frame. Half tube there, welded in. Half tube there, welded in. You know, just did that yesterday. So, you know, been doing all that and everything else. Man, I've been busy. But you know, not much video. There's really nothing too exciting in the video. So, you know, nobody wants to see me do a bunch of garbage. So I don't know. You know, I don't video that stuff a whole lot because I wouldn't want to watch it. It's no fun. So anyway, here's where I'm at on the wagon. Been playing with some piping, you know, some turbo piping, some boost tubes and stuff. So here's what we got. Hopefully you can kind of see. So basically coming out of this turbo, pressure line down here, had to add on to that one, come through this intercooler. So we have a stacked intercooler on this thing. We have two of them. You know, I was going to do like a 2-into-1 deal, but I thought, you know, this was the cheapest route to go, was buy two of these small singles. So one intercooler here, one intercooler here. So this one comes out through this front intercooler, around, coming out this side. It's going to go back through here, and then it's going to come up and go right into this top charge tube. And this one here is going to be exactly the opposite. Now, I have another tube that matches this one, 135-degree angle, so I got to change it. Yes, it's just sitting on there. So this one's going to come in through this back intercooler, out this one, and then up into this charge tube. Pretty simple. And then my wastegates, I ordered stainless bungs for my wastegates. Or not my wastegates, I'm sorry, my blow-off valves. So my blow-off valves are probably going to be in this stainless tube here. Everything else is aluminum. And man, I tell you, I'm not the greatest aluminum welder. I don't do it, you know, and I think the main reason is actually just settings on my machine, and I need to sit down and figure out some good settings on it that work for me and work for my speed and stuff. But you know, I have a hard time setting a welder up for aluminum, and you know, it can't be that much different than everything else. And sometimes I'll set it up and I'll start running beads and it's perfect, and then apparently I don't save the settings, because when I go back to my machine, the same settings that I had in there before are not working for me. So you know, that's my fault. I need to sit down and actually, I need to do a little more with that. But I get working on everything else, and I don't like try them settings until I need it. Like I needed to weld this boost pipe yesterday. It's aluminum boost pipe, and I didn't have time. Well, in my head, I didn't have time to sit there and try to fine tune that thing. So I got it welded up, and it's fine. It's sealed and it's good, but it's not pretty. You know, it's not perfectly stacked dimes, which, hey, I don't stack dimes anyway that well. So, but it's not real pretty. But anyway, it works, it holds. But you know, I wish I would take time to sit down and get it set, and I need to do that. So that's on me. But anyway, so I would have rather put my wastegates in the stainless tube, because I'm confident with stainless tube. I welded a bunch, and I think that's what I'm going to do. But you know, we got the blow-off valves. Blow-off valves just right in the top tube. So we'll blow off, and then, you know, I was going to dump back to the tube, but I think I'm just going to dump the blow off to atmosphere. You know, we're going to dump it right out the bottom of the car, and probably maybe kick a pipe out the side of the car right here, so that way when it does start dumping out, you know, you're going to hear it big time outside the car. So that'll be cool. And like I said before, this car is going to be, it's going to be quiet. We're going to put quiet exhaust on it. Now I am going to do cutouts on it, because if I want it to sound radical, then I just open the cutouts. But I want this thing to be a sleeper. I don't want you to know what's under the hood. So that's the game plan. I mean, that's kind of where we've been. And let me see here. Here's our wastegate. So basically, wastegate's going to be, I'm guessing, somewhere right around here. You know, I don't know how much room I have yet. I know I gotta get a radiator in there. So it can be here. They can be kicked back like this, which that may be the best option to go, is kick them back a little bit. You know, maybe even back here. I don't know. But, you know, we gotta watch the hoses, you know, the top heater hoses right there. So that's gonna be a problem. I'll probably end up taking that out of there and machining a fitting, or, you know, tapping that for maybe an AM fitting or something, and put a 90 on that thing. So it won't come out up here. It's probably going to come out below this tube, but that's it. I still got to get those two in. And this bung here that comes with these is aluminum, so I couldn't weld that to the stainless, obviously. So I ordered two of these in stainless. So those are here now. So basically now All I've got to do is weld that stainless in there, decide where I want it. But right now, I don't know where I want it. So I'm gonna hold off on that until I get everything else put in. And I can still put it in the aluminum tube if I need to. You know, it's not a huge deal. But, you know, I'd rather put it right up here. So, you know, that's where we're at. You know, we've been working hard on stuff, just not cool stuff. This is what it is. You know, you finally get done with all the cool stuff, and then it comes into this stuff. And to me, this stuff's no fun. Nobody wants to watch this. It's just a pain. So, but when it all comes together, it'll be awesome. So anyway, just giving you a heads up where I'm at and what I'm doing, and you know, why we haven't been videoing every day, because I like to video every day if I can, or real close to every day, but it just, man, I ain't been doing nothing cool. So I ain't gonna lie to you. You know, I like doing cool stuff too. I'm kind of disappointed that I haven't been doing anything cool. So, you know, this piping and stuff to me just, I don't know. It's like watching paint dry. So it takes a while to do it. It takes quite a while to figure it out. You know, I get something kind of figured out, and then I realize, you know, I need this tube here. You know, this is 135 degrees. You know, the kit comes with 90s, and the kit comes with straights. And unless I wanted to take a bunch of these tubes and cut them up and make this sharp bend, you know, I couldn't do it with what stuff I had. So then I had to order these, and I had to wait, you know, 3 or 4 days for those. So, you know, that kind of stuff holds you up. You get tied up with that stuff, and there's nothing you can do. So that's why I've been bouncing back and forth between everything. And you know, of course, Johnny Ringo, we did the exhaust on this side, which I showed you. And then when I had nothing to do, I started the exhaust on this side. And I said, oh yeah, I just do this side. I thought I had all these bends. And I did. I bought all these bends I needed to finish this side. And when I started looking, the bends I ordered, let me see, let me go get one of the ones that are different. Right here. Let's see. So what these are, let me get it unwrapped here, sorry. So, I think this is one. I don't know. Nope. So basically, let's see. On this, kind of hard to tell, but the distance between here and here, they're 90s, but the distance between here and here is a lot shorter than the ones I had on this side between here and here. So it ain't gonna match. Even if I try to match the other side and I use these elbows, they're not gonna match, because there's a lot more distance between here. I think this is like a little over 3 1/4, maybe 3 3/8 between here and here. And this one is like 2 1/2 between there and there. So obviously they're not gonna come out the same. Now, I probably could have done it and you'd never known it, because you can't look at both sides at the same time. That's the nice thing. You know, you get them close, nobody will ever know. So, and if they do, if they notice that, then man, they're really looking at your ride hard. So it's, you know, it is, I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted to try to use the right stuff, you know, and even at that, it's going to be hard to match the other side. It's going to be very difficult, because not that I found anyway, there's no way to really try to figure that and measure that to get it the same on both sides. So I'm going to eyeball it. I mean, I'm going to set this one up, and I'm just going to eyeball from side to side and keep looking at them. And that's how I'm going to do it. As long as it's pleasing to the eyeball, then that's all that matters. You know, it's not like it's going to bother it if it's a little off. So, but anyway, that's where I'm at. That's what I've been doing. So, I don't know, nothing exciting. Hopefully within the next week or two, I can get back to Johnny Ringo, and man, I'm chomping at the bit to get at this thing, but I've got to get this wagon done. You know, the Hot Rod Power Tour is coming. It's coming quick. So this wagon has to be done, and I want to be able to drive it for a while to make sure that, you know, everything is good before we go and take it. And you know, I haven't even drove this car. Like, so, you know, brakes, steering, everything's got to be gone over. I mean, I've checked it, and they put a lot of new parts in it. You know, nothing's loose in the front end or anything, but you know, I'm sure it's going to need alignments. It's probably going to need brakes put on it. I'd like to do disc brakes in the front. So all that stuff's got to be done, and you know, I can't work on all this stuff at the same time and get a bunch done. So I feel like I've been slacking, but I haven't. I've been working hard. I've been here every day, I promise, but it feels like you're not getting nothing done when you're working on 10 different things. So with that being said, we're gonna get back to work. All right, guys, I'm out. I'm gonna get something done. I'm gonna try to get something done. I'll let you know what we come up with next. All right, later. Alright guys, we got this a lot of tube work done here. Wasn't too bad, you know. I did play with some settings on my welder for this aluminum, because I had to weld some more aluminum pipe and stuff. I got a little better. Still doesn't make me a great aluminum welder, but it was better. It was much easier flowing, and you know, did all right. I have a hard time holding still, so I shake a lot, and I have to have my arm propped up on something. So for me to weld around a tube is really difficult. Whether it's steel, aluminum, I don't care what it is. When I have to weld around something, I'm in trouble. If I can lay down and, like, you know, prop my arm up against something, and as long as I can stitch as far as I can move my wrist, I'm good. After that, or trying to go around something, I have a rough time with it. You know, just being honest. You know, it's one thing that makes somebody a great welder is how they can hold still, or maybe they walk the cup to do it. I've never learned to walk the cup. I probably should, because, you know, some people call it cheating. It's not cheating if it works, so it doesn't matter. So anyway, maybe I would do better if I walked the cup. But anyway, we're not worried about that right now. My welds get me by. So anyway, we got it. Here's where we are. You know, right here, out of this one, down underneath of that one, into the first intercooler, through the first intercooler, out of the first intercooler, up around, into the charge tube on the intake. Same thing with this one, out of it, you know, down through, come into the intercooler, through the intercooler, out of the intercooler, 90 degree up around, into the charge tube at the intake. You know, I know there's a lot going on there, but that's what you got to do. Run twins. Like, it'd have been simpler if I just ran one turbo, and I could have just one big turbo, but I don't know. I like the twins. I don't know if either one's any better than the other. Couldn't tell you. So from the testing I've seen, you know, if it makes 9 pounds of boost, it's making the same horsepower. I don't care if you got a single making 9 pounds of boost, if you got twins making 9 pounds of boost, it's still gonna make the same horsepower. I mean, I don't know how they are for spooling. Maybe it's easier to spool twins. You know, you can say that, but when you spool twins, you know, like these are twin 63s. So each 63 millimeter turbo only has 4 cylinders trying to spin it. You know, so maybe a big single would be better, because if you doubled to 63s, it would be like, what, 126 or whatever? Well, you don't run a 126 millimeter turbo on a single. If we did like a 90 millimeter single, then you got 8 cylinders, you know, feeding that 90 millimeter. So I kind of believe in, you know, this is just my opinion, idea. I have not tested it, I have not tried it, I have not done nothing. This is really the first time I've ever messed with turbos, for the most part. So, you know, I'm just going by the theory that I have in my head, and I would think a big single 90 millimeter single would spool faster than 2 63s that are only fed by 4 cylinders each. My opinion. Take it for what it is. But, you know, if it is, it is. If it isn't, it isn't. But, like, once again, we're not going for horsepower in this thing. I mean, we want power, you know, but for what I want to do, I don't need 1,000 horse. You know, this thing will probably ballpark, it'll probably do 650, 700 crank. So that's fine. At the wheel, that's, I don't know what we lose at the wheel, but I'm guessing we probably lose 70 horse, 80 horse at the wheel. So maybe even more. I don't know. I have not messed with that. So I don't know. This is what we got. I think the twins look cool in there. The piping's in. You know, we've got the wastegates in. Like I mentioned earlier, and this is next. I'm going to do the. I got to kind of get the radiator sitting there, see where it's going to be, see where my fan's going to be, and then I'm going to. I don't know. I'm going to put the blow-off valves in, and they're probably going to go in here somewhere. You know, I have another one coming. I made a mistake the other day when I ordered my blow-off valves. I ordered one. Well, that was smart. And hey, maybe one's enough. I mean, if I put one blow-off valve up here, it might be enough. But I'm not going to take that chance. And they're cheap blow-off valves. So if one decides to stick, I'd like to have a backup. You know, these are all cheap turbos, cheap blow-off valves. You know, cheap wastegates. So anything can happen. This is a budget build, and I'm not trying to make it anything else. That's what it is. So, you know, we're not going to run the snot out of it daily. We're not racing it anywhere. We're not going out drag racing it or you know, any kind of road racing or anything. We're not doing that. So I'm not real concerned with, you know, making peak power and working the best. And you know, I hope they don't give us issues. I hope they don't come apart. You know, but I think if we do our wastegates and we do our blow-off valves properly, that's where a lot of people mess up. You know, the abuse on the turbo when the wastegates and the blow-off valves aren't right, especially the blow-offs. You know, when you slap that throttle blade closed, all that pressure wave goes right back into your turbo and just smashes the backside of your turbo. You know, tries to break the vanes on your turbo, tries to knock the bearings out of your turbo, and that's why they come apart. You know, you'll see guys complain, oh, it blew apart in 2 weeks. Well, yeah, you didn't have no wastegate, you didn't have no blow-off valves, and you were probably spooling the thing to the moon. Like, I wouldn't trust spooling these turbos over 10 or 12 pounds, you know, so I'm thinking I'm going to probably run 7 pounds, maybe 9 at the most, which is plenty. So, you know, you got to understand what you're working with. If you buy cheap, then you've got to be good to it. You got to be nice to it. If you try to abuse it, you try to get everything you can get. Oh, they'll build probably 15 pounds of boost, no problem, but you're likely going to blow them apart eventually. So you got to watch what you're doing. Just, you know, I don't know. We're going to find out though. But I am going to put a screen in here. I've mentioned it before. So behind this, I'm going to make a stainless steel mesh screen to go in there, and that clamp will actually clamp the screen right in place. Because they are cheap turbos, and I know this. Will they blow apart? Well, maybe. If they blow apart, I don't want to chunk the engine. You know, I can be driving down the road and blow a turbo apart and just do away with the turbo and block it off and block the oil lines or whatever we need to do, and I can get home. But if we chunk a turbo and it goes through the engine, we ain't getting home. So that's what I'm going to do. You know, I'm going to play it safe, because once again, I'm not fooling myself about what kind of quality on turbos and stuff I'm putting in the thing. So anyway, that's where we're at. It's coming along. So I'm going to do some, I'm going to set the radiator down in. We're going to get it kind of where I need to be, and then I'm going to start mocking up for blow-off valves. And then, you know, then we'll go from there. But then we gotta plumb all those in too. And once again, this is kind of my first go around with turbos, so I don't know. I gotta see even how to even plumb this stuff all in, because you know, you get boost lines going to them and stuff, and reference lines, and then you got adjustments and stuff for them, so we can adjust the boost on the fly if we want to raise it or lower it or what have you. So I don't know. It's all new to me. So, but that's what we're gonna do. But also, the wastegate, the blow off on the bottom of it, that tube there, I'm going to run it outside, so that I still got to build that. That won't be too bad. I could run it back into the exhaust. It'd be super easy for me to run it back in the exhaust, because the exhaust is literally, you can see, the exhaust is literally coming from right here, this flange, and it's going down underneath the car. So I could run this exhaust out here, and I could dump that thing right into the exhaust, and it would be really easy to do. My thing is though, I don't know, like I said, I'm new to turbos. So if I do that, am I gonna hear that wastegate opening by ear? Like, I wanna be able to sit in the car and hear that wastegate open. You know, that way I know if the wastegate hangs open, I'll know it's hanging open because I'm gonna hear it. If the wastegate's not opening, I'm gonna know that too. It's gonna build a bunch of boost, and you know, I'm not gonna hear the wastegate open when it's supposed to. So I think I'm gonna run it to atmosphere. That way, when it's open, you're gonna know it's open, because it's just a dead, you know, what is that, 1.5 inches or something like that, maybe, probably 1.5 inches, looks like coming out of it. So there'll be an 1.5 inch open exhaust just coming out of the side of the car. And that's open exhaust before the turbo, so it's not gonna be quiet. Like, when that thing goes into, that wastegate opens up, you're gonna know it. So, you know, so that way, when we happen to pull up beside somebody and they wanna give this thing a try, then it'll be nice and quiet until we lay into it. And when we get that thing spooled hard enough to open that wastegate, they're gonna know what's under it. So that's where we are. You know, you gotta have fun. You gotta have a good time running these things. You know, if we can't have fun doing it, then what's the point? You know, we might as well just go buy a freaking Civic or something. Nothing against Civics. Don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but but just how it is. You know, I like my big beefy American muscle. So there she is. That's what we got. We're well on our way. We're doing good with this thing, and I need to get it done because I really need to get back on Johnny Ringo. I'm really jonesing to get back on that car. So soon, I promise. But I did tell you this was coming in. You know, if you watch the other videos, you knew this car was coming, and here it is. You know, we're rolling on it. Like I said, nothing fancy. We're not trying to get crazy like we are on Johnny Ringo, but you know, it's got to work. So it's got to get us halfway across the country and back multiple times. So I think we'll be all right. You know, turbos worry me a little bit. Everything else in the engine though is good stuff. Like, we did use stock bottom end. I'm not saying we beefed the bottom end way up, but you know, we did good cam, good springs, good oil pumps and stuff. You know, it just, we took care of all of that. You know, that, you know, did the trunnion kits and stuff in it. So the engine itself should be fine. The cheap intake and throttle body, I don't know. And the cheap turbos, don't know, but we're gonna find out. So hopefully don't find out the hard way. But all right, guys, I'm out of here. I am going to work on radiator mounts and blow off valve positions, and honestly, it won't be too long. I'll be yanking this engine back out so I can paint the engine. Like, yeah, the engine looks all crusty and nasty, and it's been gone through and rebuilt, but I didn't paint it because I knew I was going to be dinging it up doing all this stuff, so that's why it's not painted. But anyway, a few more mock-up stuff, and we're on our way. You know, I better start learning my HP tuner stuff real fast because I just bought it and now I got to learn it. So this needs to get HP tuners. If not, I'm going to have to buy probably Holley system or something. Maybe like the Holley Dominator or Terminator or whatever it is. Not the Sniper. I don't want to go that route. But either way, we'll figure it out when we get there. All right, guys, I'm out.